All set, Lisa?
It's starting up right now, so
Okay,
we should be good.
great.
Oh, wait a minute. Okay, we should be good.
Thank you. Welcome to the Monday, March 8th, 2021 meeting of the Dennis-Yarmouth Regional School Committee. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, our first order of business tonight is a presentation by Superintendent Woodbury.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As everyone around the school committee table knows, Dennis-Yarmouth, in addition to being a great school academically, is well known for the arts, both the visual and performing arts. And so tonight we have with us a few, I don't know if we have everybody, but we have a few of our students who were recently recognized through the Alliance for Young Artists and Writers with Scholastic Art Awards for 2020. And I know with us we have their teachers, Ms. Angela DeRosha and Mr. Craig Brote. And so if they would like to say anything, perhaps someone could allow them to unmute and we'll get started with the presentation.
Hello, this is Mr. Rosha. Can you hear me okay?
We can.
Excellent. Thank you so much for this opportunity. We are looking forward to hearing from some students from the Scholastic Art Awards for the Alliance for Young Artists. No writers here with us this evening, but I can't see who's here or who's not here. But I do know Mr. Brote is here and he was also a part of this, and we're just really honored to have this recognition. And the students worked really hard to get this artwork done in time. As you know, it's the beginning of the year. Scholastic is always a challenge because it's so early in the year, and oftentimes it takes so long to get work completed, let alone quality work. So we're really impressed with the students' abilities and their just perseverance this year has been amazing, and really impressed. So,
hey, Christine.
I'm sorry.
Nope. I think we're okay.
Okay. Good. All right. So that's it. And I don't know if Mr. Brote would like to share anything. I know he's been working super hard and he has a lot of students working right now on a lot of great things as well. So this is just the beginning. We have a lot of good stuff coming up.
And I imagine it's been a little bit challenging during a pandemic to do, to get kids with their artwork. So
yes, everything has been a challenge, but it's also been really a lifeline for a lot of these students to be able to have this opportunity. So
absolutely.
It's been amazing.
All right, so what we're hoping is, as each slide comes up, if the student is present, perhaps Lisa will be able to notice that in the participant list, and we were going to allow the student just to say a couple of words about their piece. So I think first up we have Jacob Joy. So I will move it to the next slide, and I thought I saw Jacob's name there in the participant list. Are you there, Jacob?
Yeah, I'm here.
Would you like to say something about your piece called Thank You, which received an honorable mention?
Yeah, sure. So I needed a picture for the photography class because we were doing a narrative assignment, which was supposed to like tell a story. It was supposed to be 1,000 words just in one picture. And I was originally going to take a picture of all the flags that were out on the church the day of Veterans Day, but then I remembered, oh, my grandfather served. So I took a picture of him with all of his badges. And it felt really good to take a picture of it because I was recognizing him for his service that he did to our country. And at the time also we were doing scholastic arts and writing competition, which I learned all about it and the things that they did. And I was like, okay, I'll just put my photo up on there because I think it's really good. And a few months later, I just come back and it gets like an honorable mention.
Wow. Fantastic. Thank you very much. And
Thank you.
congratulations. Next up, we have Kiki Pigo-Cronin, who also received an honorable mention and has is in the 9th grade also. And her piece is called Justice for Bobby. Is Pico here? Kiki, I'm sorry, Kiki here? I didn't see her name.
I don't see her name in the list, but if she, please raise your hand.
Okay, we'll move along. This is Lauren Campbell. I thought I saw Lauren in the list, and
Yep.
this is called Nature Key. She's in grade 10, and this received an honorable mention. Lauren, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Would you like to say anything about this piece?
This was like our nature inspired keys we had to do at the beginning of the year, and we had to use like supplies that we found like at our house or that like Mr. Broke gave us. And I chose to do like these wildflowers and some sticks, and I like connected them with like string, and like the wildflowers are just supposed to like symbolize like how our world is changing so much. And it was during the winter, so like they were kind of dead, and it just like shows that like even though nature is really pretty, and it kind of like related to COVID because it was just like a lot of negative things were happening. So that's all.
All right, thank you, Lauren. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Next up is School 2020, Larissa Ribeiro. Is she on the list, Madam Chair?
I don't see her on the list.
Okay. Moving on, we have one called Dear by Victor Avila, also an honorable mention, and Victor's in grade 12, senior.
I think he's on the call.
Yeah, I'm here.
There we go.
Victor, would you like to tell us about your piece?
Yeah, sure. Well, this was the third like piece that I've ever done, and I chose like clay because it was a lot of fun in all the others. And also the details are about a thing called mandala, which basically means that life goes on. And I was reading about the deers, and I knew that at once they were endangered, not for a long period of time, but I just thought it would be a good idea.
Okay.
So the meaning of it is basically that life goes on. That's all.
Perfect for the pandemic. Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you, Victor, and congratulations. Is Abigail Frisch on the line? Her piece is titled Ladder as Metaphor, and she is also in grade 12 with an honorable mention. Do we see her on the list?
I don't.
Okay, we'll move on then. How about Heidi Souza? This is Heidi's piece called Rhino Ceremonial Bowl, and this received a silver key. And Heidi is in grade 10. And as you can imagine, they go from gold keys all the way through to honorable mentions, silver keys, and then honorable mentions.
I can speak a little bit about.
Okay.
Sorry, I didn't know that I was able to mic in. So with Abigail and Heidi, I knew they weren't going to be able to attend, but if you want to go back to ladder as metaphor.
Okay, let me see if I can. Hang on.
Again, if you can't, we could.
Previous, and I can. Look
All
at
right.
that.
One more.
One more. Okay.
So ladder as metaphor, we actually started that as an assignment right before the pandemic last year. And scholastics, you know, we turn those in the beginning of the year to get awards. And so sometimes we keep images of the work and the work themselves to submit. And Abigail was one of the students that we were able to submit the work because she had it completed through the pandemic, and we were able to submit it this year. And her metaphor was, I guess, heaven and hell, and just having the ladder as that sense of a metaphor. She had moss at the top of that ladder, and it was a 3-part sculpture where it had to fit together. So, and if you go to the next slide,
Sure.
Heidi, she also emailed me that stated that she was going to be not able to attend, but she is another student that we have an African-inspired sculpture, and this was almost like a homage to the rhinos because they have been heavily hunted for their tusks or horns, and so she made a ceremonial bowl for representing, you know, the disparage that they go through, and she was one of our silver key, which was quite an honor.
Yes, thank you. I think I saw Alexa Barboza on the call.
Hi.
Hi, Alexa. Want to tell us about this?
Okay, so my piece is called Unspoken. So especially through COVID and like everything that's going on now, many people don't speak up about stuff. So that's kind of what it was like based on. So it's called Unspoken pretty much because like nowadays with COVID and all like the difficulties, like being able to speak up is a major thing, especially. So it's kind of just like showing how dark it can be when you like don't speak up.
Thank you. And I see that you received a gold key. That's quite an honor.
Yeah.
So congratulations. And I think I saw Keegan McFarland on the call also. Keegan, are you there?
Hello.
Hi, Keegan. Would you like to tell us about this?
Yes, please. So my piece was based off just experience on me. So I was working outside, and then I realized I had a berry tree behind my house. So I went out and I accidentally popped a few berries on my fingers. So I said, wow, this looks kind of cool. So first I asked my sister to try helping me take some pictures, but none of those worked out. So after a while, I tried taking some pictures on my own by setting a timer on my phone. So afterwards, I got a nice looking picture and I edited it, and I got this as the result.
Nice. Nice. Was reaching out anything in particular that you were trying to show, or just like the way it sounded with the way the picture looks?
Well, when I was working on this, sometimes I would feel like I would need to reach out for help because I don't really like asking for help in many scenarios. So that was really what was inspiring me to entitle it like that.
Thank you. And congratulations on your gold key. I think Unspoken and reaching out have a little something in common there, I would say, given our situation these days. So congratulations. And Lauren Campbell, grade 10, also received a gold key for this. And she had spoken with us earlier on an honorable mention. Lauren, are you still present?
Yes.
Would you like to tell us about this one?
Sure. So this assignment was to create an African-inspired sculpture. So I decided to like make a bust because I was flipping through like some of Mr. Broad's books, and that's what like spoke to me the most. So then I kind of just like did whatever felt right, and then this is how it came out.
Well, congratulations on your gold key and your honorable mention. And
Thank you.
we appreciate all of you being here tonight, sharing your work with us, because the school committee does a lot of important work for our students, and we never want to lose sight of the importance of who's behind all that work, you guys. So thank you so much to you and to your teachers, and congratulations for this great success.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thanks. Back to you, Madam Chair.
Yes, here we go. We have one item tonight that is further down on the agenda under school committee business. The approval of proprietary specification for controls. And if the committee agrees, I'd like to move that up the agenda so that the guest speaking on that can go at the beginning of the meeting. Is it, would anyone make that motion to move that up next on the agenda?
Move the motion.
Second.
Made and seconded, discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye, thank you very much.
Aye.
So we're gonna go right to that item, please.
Walter, are you able to share your screen?
Absolutely. Can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
Great. I will screen share. I believe everyone was emailed a copy of these slides along with the letter of recommendation from our designer and specifically his electrical engineer and HVAC engineer. So under Chapter 30 of MGL 3039M, the use of proprietary specifications for public construction projects shall only be used for sound reasons in the public interest stated in writing in the public records of the awarding authority. So during our time over the last few years of designing this building, there was one item that was requested and reviewed by the facilities department, school facilities department, and that was the HVAC controls for the project. It is a standard across the district that is being used, and what it really allows for the district is to have a complete system that they're able to operate all the buildings and have no type of training issues, no type of parts management upgrades. It really gives the school facilities department an edge on having anyone new come into the building. It's one system that they need to learn and control all the buildings. So from there, we are required by the MSBA to give that over to them on a certified copy of the vote. And it is required that it goes through the school committee and not the building committee. I am going to jump over to, one second, I apologize, to the letter and just kind of go through the benefits for the town. The Snyder Electric Control System would readily integrate into the current district-wide control system infrastructure. The controls utilize a standard BACnet protocol for open communication of various third-party BAS products. What that means is that you're not beholden to one person coming in and working any issues out. A lot of times what these controls contractors may do is make it so that the system is not accessible and that you're forced into a contract with them for any type of issues. This really allows you to have an open protocol system where anyone can come in and you can get really competitive pricing for issues that do end up arising. The Snyder Electric Control System would allow the district to utilize their current building management service company, ENE system, for current and future work. That's pretty much goes along with number 2, which was what we just talked about. The system currently utilized in many town district buildings, therefore the employees and the staff are familiar with these systems, its capabilities, general operation of its software and its tools. The additional benefits are the reliability of the service and integration to existing building automatic temperature controls system network. And 2, it reduces the cost of maintenance for the staff and training services and reduced cost of stocking control components. You're not putting 3 different types of the same part on your shelves at all times. So for that reason, the project is of the belief that this is a sound benefit for the district to move forward with. I can hop back to the presentation. And at this point, I could take any questions on the proprietary. I know it's a very quick item, and I'm sure that if anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Anyone have any questions?
I think Joe has his hand up, and I see
Yeah.
Phil with his real hand up.
I prefer the fake hand, but that's okay. Walter, just to,
Can you stop the screen share, Walter?
Yes, I can.
Thank you.
just a quick question. You don't know off the top of your head if any buildings in Dennis-Yarmouth, as far as town facilities, currently have this system, do you?
Currently, a multitude of the schools are utilizing this system, specifically the high school. I am not positive about in the town itself, but I would not be surprised to know that this is in some of the town buildings as well.
Right, and this is all rolled into the building project, so it's not going to cost, it's not outside the purview of the building project, right?
No, it is not.
Yep.
What type of motion do you need to approve this?
There's one on the agenda. There's one written on the agenda, Phil.
Yep.
If you have that.
I do have it, and I'm looking for it. Here it is.
Yep.
A vote to approve proprietary specifications for controls. I move that for sound reasons in public interest, we move to approve the use of proprietary specifications for the controls of the Dennis-Yarmouth Intermediate School, period.
Second.
Is it made and seconded? Further discussion on this?
Probably should be intermediate middle school. I think we lost a word there on our agenda. I apologize.
I'm sure Phil is amending his motion to say intermediate
I so
middle
move.
school.
Yes, I meant that all along.
Fantastic. Zane, you had a question?
Yes. You know, I know some of our HVAC systems are outdated in the system. I imagine that that has to do with hardware or existing infrastructure or things like that, and it's not actually. We're not stocking like parts for a 1967 Chevy, right? This is up to date. You know, will take us into the future and all that sort of thing.
Yeah, when I was speaking to the parts, I more meant for the control, so tiny parts that you'd be stocking on a control system, you know, switches and network items like that. But yes, this system is completely a brand new system, up to date, and is going to carry you into the future. Yes.
Fantastic. I assumed as much, but just wanted to ask the question.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, any other questions?
Just a comment. I had a 67 Chevy, so don't knock it.
30 years ago, probably, right?
When he was 40.
40. Any other questions? All right, hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
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 It's a vote by unanimous vote, I would say. So
That's awesome.
thank you very much, Walter.
If it wouldn't, I would love to give you guys a quick 2-minute update on where the project, if you guys would be interested in hearing that. Carol had asked me to offer that up to you, and I'd be.
Yeah, I see lots of nodding. So
Okay,
yes.
great. And I'll go quickly. So I was in early November 2020. The school building committee created the subcommittee to pre-qualification. So we started the pre-qualification process under MGL Chapter 149. We advertised in the Central Register, in the newspapers, and on the Goods and Services Bulletin for the state. We received over 110 applications for this project. That's general contractors and 15 what we call filed subbidders. That's masons, waterproofers, roofers, resilient floor, acoustic ceiling tile, terrazzo, HVAC, fire protection, electrical, plumbing, and elevators. So the pre-qualification committee, which consisted of one member of the OPM group, which was PMA consultants, one member of the design team, which was Dan Cawley, and then 2 members from the district, Sandy Cashin and Kurt Sears, were asked to partake, and they happily donated quite a bit of their time over those 2 months, in November and December, going through that with us. And it is quite a process to undertake and review. So we received 110 packages. We score those packages. There's a minimum criteria that the contractors are required to meet before they're approved to bid on the project. In mid-December, we sent out the notifications that to the pre-qualified general contractors and filed sub-bidders. We are happy to say we have now received the 15 filed sub-bids, and from our estimates, they were roughly $400,000 under our estimated budget at 90%. And what's going to happen over the next week is that we are going to receive general bids on Tuesday, I believe that would be the 15th, 16th, next week at 1 p.m. And we will know, and then PMA will begin the review of the lowest responsible and eligible bidder. So they submit a package. It is similar to the pre-qualification package, but it is really just an update from that point in time of early December till the time of bid. And hopefully early April, mid-April, we'd be looking to have the site, the contractor on site and breaking ground. So that's kind of the quick 5-minute of where we are in the process. I know it's a lot of information, but we're excited to receive the bids and execute a contract and move forward.
So we'll be at the next school committee meeting on the 22nd. We'll be back to ask the school committee to approve the contract. Very exciting.
We are very excited.
That is very exciting. Good news for sure. Joe Glynn has his hand raised.
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind, Madam Chair, I just had a quick question. You said 110. I'm just trying to get a beat on the environment now. Is that a lot of contractors and bidders? And the second question is, is there a number? Do you have to break that all down individually, or is it all one combined number for the combined work?
Absolutely. I would say that over 100 packages is above what we would have expected. We typically see anywhere from 70 to 90, so 110 was definitely a good indication that people are hungry for work, and we're looking forward to getting a competitive bid environment. So that was great. And then the second part of your question, the general bidders will then take, and they're allowed to craft their bid however they want. So they'll take whoever they want from that pre-qualified list, knowing that their bid on the overall number needs to be the lowest. So typically they take the lowest responsible bidder from the filed subbids, and then they craft the remaining roughly 40% of the project, maybe upwards of 50 of the remaining piece, and they put their number, and then it becomes one number. They just identify who the filed subbidders will be for them, and then they put in a final bid, and that's the only number that matters.
Great, thank you very much.
No problem.
Thank you. Other questions for Walter at this time? Seeing none. Thank you so much, Walter.
No problem. We appreciate it.
And now we will move back up the agenda to our reports from our student representatives, please.
All right, I will start. First, I just want to start by saying Eleanor Sears, who is a junior at the high school, recently won the semifinals competition for Poetry Out Loud, which is a huge accomplishment. We're all very proud of her at the high school. Next, Elena Rooney's club, Girl Up, just started fundraising today on International Women's Day. The fundraiser of this month is raffling off these homemade rings that a member of the club actually makes for $5 each, and all the proceeds will go towards buying feminine products and shipping them over to Africa towards different organizations that support women who don't have access to those items. And then also the math team made the playoffs this year, which will be Wednesday, I believe at 3 o'clock, excuse me. And we were all very, very excited for that. It's a big deal. Tynan?
Yeah, so the playoffs is an incredible, huge opportunity for us because I've been in the math team since 8th grade and we've never made playoffs. So for us to make playoffs this year is phenomenal. Another competition that students are doing with the math department, we did not this last Sunday, but the week before Sunday. It was a 14-hour math competition that was research-based. Pretty much we had 3 questions. We wrote a 19-page report using code and everything. It was about bandwidth and broadband and connection and connectivity of that. It was super cool. I was able to partake in it with 4 other students. It was an amazing experience. And last Friday, the Math National Honor Society had their ceremony for the inductions and the inductees. And Carol Woodbury did attend. It was a pleasant surprise. And it went really well, but that's pretty much it from us.
Thank you, both of you, and congratulations to everyone. Lots of great stuff going on in DY. Our next item, reports from liaisons to the boards of selectmen. I did not attend a Dennis Selectmen meeting. Did you, Jennifer or Jim? No, it doesn't look like it. Okay. Is there a report from Yarmouth? Joe Glenn?
Yeah, Jenny, it actually was a rehash of some of the other previous stuff, but ironically, even after their discussion, because some of the stuff wasn't on the agenda, they are going to have it at tomorrow night's meeting. So but there is going to be a discussion on both the feasibility study again, which we all thought was put to bed, but hopefully tomorrow night it will be put to bed. And there was a discussion about the town elections and the town meetings, and that is on the agenda. That Yarmouth Town Clerk is on the agenda tomorrow. So they'll be determining when the election is for the town and also the town meeting. I think that they're looking at weather-related issues and trying to extend it, but they also have limitations with budgets and if there's an override or whatever. So they take that into account. But the clerk emailed me today thinking that the May 18th election day would stay the same, she believed, but they'll have that discussion tomorrow. But that's all I have.
Thanks, Joe. I should mention that in Dennis, the last day to pull papers is March 19th to run for any of the upcoming seats. I don't know the last day in Yarmouth.
Yarmouth is March 30th.
Right,
okay.
March 30th.
Great, thank you very much. All right, I think we just heard a building update, so we can probably.
Yep.
Joe's nodding his head, excellent.
Yep.
So superintendent's report, please.
Okay, so I'm going to screen share and get you into our budget. Thank you. So tonight I'll be seeking the school committee's vote to adopt a final budget. And we'll take you through a few slides and then some parts of the assessment worksheet. As you can see from the timeline, in order to comply with the laws and regulations governing the regional schools, This Friday, March 12th, would be the last date for adoption of a final budget. So that's why I'm seeking your approval this evening. Those of you who've been watching this process over the years know that sometimes, in agreement with the leadership of the two towns, the school committee further reduces the budget even after a final budget is adopted on this timeline. However, tonight we do need to vote that final budget in order to be in compliance. The costs to each town for education are based on enrollment. It starts with the state telling us what the minimum contribution for each town will be annually, and you'll see those numbers shortly. After the minimum contributions are subtracted from the total budget, the regional agreement language determines how the balance will be split. In the fall of 2019, those that were on the committee or those that were watching may remember that there were some changes made to the regional agreement that were accepted by both towns at their town meetings. These changes allowed the district to use a 5-year rolling average to calculate this balance. The chart shows how over the years the enrollment has shifted between the two towns, and the 5-year rolling average, as you can see, helps to slow the changes. So if you take a look at, I don't know if my cursor will work, but if you take a look here at the 5-year rolling average versus what the amount would be in if we were in the same, I don't know, maybe it's not there. Okay, hang on. That must be on a different slide. So you can see the difference between what it was last year, what it would be in 22, and what yeah, here it is. We're hit the 5-year full rolling average. So it kind of helps to slow down the drop in enrollment. And that was what the committee, the members of the school committee that were on the subcommittee and the towns and everyone was hoping to see. Just to provide you with some context about where we stand within the districts on the Cape, these are the per pupil expenditures for FY19 for our Cape districts. And you can see that Dennis-Yarmouth is not the lowest, nor is it the highest. But I believe that we provide a great education for the dollars that are provided. You heard tonight two really great things. First, about the arts, and also about the academics, particularly in the area of math. So there's a lot to be proud of. This is the revenue slide. It was the cherry sheet from the governor's budget. You folks have seen this before. Sometimes there are changes to these numbers after the House considers the budget, the Senate considers the budget, and then of course there's always a conference committee that tries to reconcile the state budget before it becomes the final budget. At this point, we're only at the governor's level. Things are moving slowly in the state. I'm sure it has a lot to do with what kind of revenues they're going to have available to put forward to schools and other things that the state has to fund. Sometimes these stages happen in a way that helps us to consider additional changes to our budget, but not always, especially if it comes after July 1st. We are often complete with the budget process by then, and we need to be, otherwise we have to petition the state for a 1/12 budget. So this is the cost side of the cherry sheet. I know Ken has shown these at several meetings, and these items are directly deducted from the revenue from the state. So the money never really passes through our books. It goes directly to either the schools where students are choosing, or charter, or in the particular case of special ed, we have a few special ed costs that run on a state level. As you've seen throughout the spring, the governor's budget has very little impact in terms of the revenue to help either one of our towns, because after the expenses, it really is only an increase of $26,854. At the time we put this together last week, we still didn't have any definitive answers about what school will look like in September. I was listening to the Board of Education at the state level, Massachusetts Board of Education, and heard that they voted that school will open full in person in the fall. I just got an email before I came to this meeting that there will be some guidance from the commissioner on what full in-person will look like. I think it's right now what he's considering for full in-person, but also probably into the fall. So we're waiting that guidance to see what it looks like. And as you know, we all along said that we really shouldn't put these kinds of items in our budget because we were hopeful that we would get funding through, it'll come through the state, but it's really federal government funding through the ESSER 2 grant funds. And it's best not to put these one-time purchases in our budget. It just doesn't make the budget work well, and it won't be there in the future. So similar to other grants, we took some of the things out of our budget in order to make sure that we weren't putting one-time spending into the budget. This is the amount that you voted for our tentative budget that was adopted just a month ago today. And at that time, it was an increase of 4.26%. And the budget at that time also included many of those pandemic costs that we have since removed. This simply shows the adopted tentative budget by the DESE codes. I'm sure you've all looked at those before. As I mentioned, we reduced the budget by moving the items that were in the budget that should be one-time expenses that could be paid for by the ESSER 2 grant funds. In addition, we adjusted for some known retirements now. We brought our health benefits further in line with the actuals as reduced by the Cape Cod Municipal Health Group. And at this time, that budget stands at a 3.37% increase over FY21. These are the DESE codes and the breakdown where you can see the adjustments in the 2000 series. That's primarily the ESSER grant adjustments for staffing and also the known retirements. The 3000 series is custodial services. As Ms. Jenks has mentioned on many occasions, we had to increase our custodial when we didn't know for sure that we might be getting ESSER grant money, or we didn't know if we would be required to do the same kind of distancing and cleaning and such for next year. We left those monies in the budget, but now we have taken those monies out thinking that if we need some additional cleaning services, we will be able to rely on our ESSER grant. I mentioned earlier, and we've talked about it several times, we made the adjustments to the health insurance. That was pretty significant for us this year. Debt service, which is in the 8,000 account, not actually attached to the budget because it's outside required net school spending and so on, but that has been firmed up since the last meeting, so that's been adjusted. And in the 9,000 account, there are some out-of-district special education placements that we've made some adjustments there. In your packet, you have a series of worksheets that show the lead up to the assessment worksheet. And I'm going to just toggle over to those sheets for a second so that I can talk about that. Where are they? Thought I opened that. Okay, I don't see it. I thought I had opened it. Okay, if you could just bear with me 1 second, I'd like to open that. Let's go back to my spreadsheet here. Oh, here it is. It should be there. Okay, let's see. Here we are. On this first page, it's hard for me to see it. Okay. On this first page, this is about the enrollment. And one of the things that you can see on the edge here where it says totals and then it says in seats old model. So this shows the difference of if we had not changed to the 5-year rolling average, what it would look like this year in terms of enrollment for the two towns. So there's a significant advantage or disadvantage, however you want to look at it, but the two towns agreed that this was the way to go because it could work in either direction, really. On the next page, I mentioned, let me see, On the next page, I had mentioned that the state excludes some expenses from net school spending. Things like transportation, any equipment replacements, or any capital projects are excluded from the net school spending. So those are not found in the budget. Yeah, I mean, they're found in the budget, but they're not part of the net school spending. So you can't subtract the net school spending money from it. This is the detail on the capital expenses. Just from the various projects. Again, we're still paying a little on the high school. We've got some projects that we had in Yarmouth for a few years. They're carried over now from the project at Baker in 2013 when we did some upgrades there. And then now, again, as we said, the money for the DY intermediate middle school that we have gone out to bond for now. And finally, oops, sorry, my little thing at the bottom keeps coming up, so I can't toggle over. Stop it. All right, here we go. And so finally, this is the revenue that we're recommending for inclusion in the budget to be subtracted prior to going to the towns for the rest of the money. So you can see the Chapter 78, the charter reimbursement. Many times we include certain interest earned, Medicaid money that we get in, other miscellaneous revenue from fees and things like that. And finally, we're recommending that we use $125,000 of our E&D to apply to the budget just to help reduce the costs for the two towns. Again, it's not a huge amount, so if it's not there next year, hopefully it won't have a big impact on us. I'm just going to go back over to the other piece. And so this is part of your assessment worksheet. If you were looking at the assessment worksheet, even though this shows you as lines 1, 2, 3, etc., you can find these lines on the assessment worksheet in number 58, 59, and 60. And this is what, oops, sorry, my apologies. It's lines 53 to 58. I was looking at the wrong page. So if you look at those sheets, you would see the same things that you see here: the required net school spending, the state and district revenue, the foundation assessment, the required local contribution, and then the amount above the required local contribution, and the total of the statutory assessment. So on the next one, it's on the next one, I meant to say, 58 lines 58, 59, and 60. And these are the lines that make up the whole budget. So the total statutory assessment from the prior slide, the other capital costs and transportation, then round up to the total assessment. So this is what it would be. The first line here is last year's assessment. It says prior assessment, less debt service. If we multiplied those by 2.5%, sometimes our towns like to compare their assessments to 2.5%. So we do that annually. And then you see our FY22 assessment. So if you're looking at the assessments and you're looking at them in terms of variance to 2.5, you can see that Dennis is below the 2.5 cap and Yarmouth quite significantly above, even despite our change in the enrollment, the way we do the enrollment. Yarmouth just has more kids. So on this slide is the final budget recommendation for tonight. And we'll circle back to that in a few minutes, but you add the total operating assessment for each town and their share of their debt service, and then you get the totals. We're still going to continue to look through the budget to see if there are other things that we can pull out that we might be able to put into grants that we might receive. But things have to be COVID related. So, unless they broaden that a little bit, it might be a little difficult for us. Ken and I were talking about possibly having another finance subcommittee meeting just to chat with our subcommittee about any other possible reductions that they would see that might help. Also, if we're using the appropriate amount in everyone's eyes on the E&D, given our situation. One of the things that might help the situation is one of the things that we can spend E&D on are one-time costs. So we had asked each of the towns for some capital items. We might be able to take those capital items off the plate by paying for them with E&D, and then the towns would hopefully have some more money that they could put toward the school budget. So those are a couple of thoughts that we had. And I'll go to questions and feedback and then take you back to the recommendation.
All right. Committee members, questions, comments, please use the raise hand function if you can. I can't see everybody on the screen right now.
You want me to stop the screen share for this part?
No, because I think people might want to refer back to some of the slides. You might as well keep it up. Joe Glenn.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Carol, if you could go back to the slide where you had the 2.5% breakdown for the towns. I think it was like 500,000 difference for Dennis off of theirs, and Yarmouth was like $1 million. So yeah, so it was 500,000 to the good for Dennis, and Yarmouth was almost $1 million off.
Joe, I think
Okay,
that the variance for Dennis to 2.5 is 77,254.
Negative. Oh, I'm sorry. I was looking at the previous year assessment. I'm sorry. Okay, so that's only 77,000. So that answers a question I was going to ask. If we put Dennis right at 2.5, what would that put Yarmouth? But I misread this. I looked at the top row instead of the bottom row. We're still my question always had to do with Yarmouth hasn't really spoken on this budget. We haven't done a presentation. When I mean we, the district, haven't done a presentation to Yarmouth. I don't know if you've done one for Dennis. So they're gonna come back and say what their appetite is for it over 2.5%, what they think the town is gonna have if would be an override in this case. And they're gonna come back to us. So I don't have a problem. I agree that we should do a subcommittee meeting, but the only problem with that is if you're not a member of the finance subcommittee, we won't be able to put our input into that until we get back to the whole committee. I mean, non-members of the subcommittee. Is that correct?
Well, you can give your input here at these meetings.
Right. Yeah. No. But I'm saying if there was a subcommittee conversation about that, we'd have to wait. In other words, I would have to wait, not being on the subcommittee, to give my ideas, because I agree with you.
Or if you have specific feedback now, Joe, if you don't want to do it now, you could always reach out to Carol or one of the members of the subcommittee.
Right. Okay. Yeah, and I'll do that.
Okay.
And I'll be, I'll attend and not participate, but I just so we have a back. But we'll have we'll have a better look at Yarmouth and Dennis also when the towns get to look at it. But my concerns, I agree with that E&D with the capital and reaching into that, because this year we're in an enviable position because we got more E&D than we had previously gotten. So what we had projected is good, but I still would like to see what the selectmen in the town revenues are saying anyway. But thanks so much for the presentation. Great job.
Thank you.
Joe Tierney.
Thank you, Jenny. Carol, just so everybody's clear, I think if you see on this slide here, the 77,254 is under 2.5%. So Dennis's assessment will be under 2.5%, so they won't have to go for an override. On the other side, Yarmouth is $1.388 million that they would have to go for an override. Is that correct?
It's not really up to us to decide. I was told by Dennis last year, they'll decide whether or not they want to have an override. And I think, you know, if the town of Yarmouth had that money, they wouldn't have to go for an override.
Right. No,
They
right.
have-
Absolutely.
They
right.
have chosen by policy, and I see that Tracy's on the meeting, so she may say something later, but they've chosen by policy to do that, anything that goes over 2.5%. But one of the things
Okay,
I was just going to say, one of the things that people have to remember is, I think you have to look at this in its totality, because look at where we were without the changes to the regional agreement. Things would be much worse.
Right. So I just want to make sure we're clear. It's a 1.388 above 2.5%. So the town of Yarmouth can either go for an override, or they can pay that $1.3 million out of their funds. Can you go back, because I don't have it in front of me. I know it's one of the first slides. It has the enrollment. I just want to.
Sure.
I just want to look at the enrollment for.
Yeah, sorry. The only way I can do it is
That's fine.
Go
Yeah.
through all of the slides.
And I'm sorry. Yeah, I know it was back a ways. I just.
Don't you love pandemics? Here we are. Here we are.
You're getting there. So okay. So in 2020, Dennis had an enrollment of 1,062. Now it's 1,047. Yarmouth has also gone down, correct? But the total enrollment's gone down.
Yes.
I'm just trying to justify the $1.3 million above 2.5. That's all. I'll be honest, I'm not real comfortable with it. You know, I think it might be, it needs to be a discussion with the subcommittee, you know, on further reductions and using more of the E&D funds. I hate using E&D funds because it only hurts us in the following year. You know, that money is earmarked. This budget won't go down next year. Hopefully it will, but chances are it won't. So if we take that, say we take $500,000 out of E&D this year, that's still, we're going to still have to take that out next year to still be at the same number. So I'm not real comfortable with the high amount in Yarmouth with that $1.3 million. You know, so I'd like to see it down more, and I'm not real comfortable with that. So I think it needs to be, you know, more work on the subcommittee's side, and naturally yours and Ken's to try to, you know, bring that down to a more manageable amount. But I understand also that if you take $100,000 out of the budget, you know, then it's split among that 6732 line. You know, so it doesn't pull $100,000 or it doesn't pull $1 million out of the Yarmouth side. So in order to get to 2.5, we would have to reduce the budget a lot more than $1.3 million. So, you know, those are the struggles and the thoughts that I have. But I'd like to, you know, possibly see this go down just to a more palatable amount, you know, where we may, if we have to, put some more E&D toward it and make a few more reductions and see if that's palatable to the town and the voters if need be. So those were just my observations. Thank you.
Yeah, Joe, I think to your point, though, looking at what 22 would have been for Yarmouth without the 5-year rolling average, right? Yarmouth would have been at 69 point almost 3, right? So with the 5-year rolling average, at least it's the 67 point, 0.1 essentially.
Right.
So, and as you said, if we put E&D towards this, if we put more E&D into this budget, then Yarmouth only sees a 67% benefit of that, and Dennis again gets a 33% benefit of that. So, that drops Dennis. Now Dennis is already 77 under the 2.5%. So, I liked Carol's idea of looking at what capital projects we put out to the 2 towns and considering using E&D for that. That could be a benefit to Yarmouth. I'm thinking. So anyway, but we'll have a subcommittee and try to work this number down further for sure. Phil?
Thank you. A couple observations. One, for our newer members, or even those of us who are not as new might have forgotten, that any vote by a 3-member subcommittee is only a recommendation. A subcommittee can't speak for the full committee, which is why it's never higher than 3 out of the 7. So whatever we discuss, it'll be only a suggestion for the entire board to decide. Another observation is, let's not forget that Prop 2.5 law is a prohibition against using a revenue source from the property tax of 2.5%. There's no prohibition against any other revenues being used, such as in the case of free cash or E&D. We've had this discussion almost every year that we've been since regionalization, that you can't take the money out of one town or add money to one town without affecting the other town's revenue or expense sheet. So it's a discussion, it's a 3-party discussion when it finally comes to town meeting, who after all is the final authority. Thanks.
Anybody else? Questions, comments for Carol? I don't see any hands raised from committee members. Carol, you want to go back to the slide with the
Sure.
proposed
Before we
amount
leave,
tonight, please?
before we leave this slide, I just want to point out to the committee, in case you didn't notice, like where in the line that says 5-year rolling average, the number under it in parentheses is what the town pay, percentage was the last year using the 5-year rolling average. And as you can see, last year, Dennis's enrollment would have been 31.346 if they had, if they hadn't voted for that, and they went up, close to 2.5 percentage points in enrollment to kind of keep the peace between the 2 towns. So again, it's not a perfect situation, but it is what it is. I'll take it to the end, and there we are.
Would anyone like to move the superintendent's recommendation? It does need to be read into the record with all of the assessments and the debt service.
Move the superintendent.
Second.
Carol, do you need it read out with the assessments and the debt service?
I think it would be best if it was read. We usually do.
Jim, you made the motion. Can you read? Are you willing to read the slide?
The superintendent recommends the school committee adopt a total budget of $66,923,450 with the following assessments. Operating assessment, $17,725,330. For Dennis-Yarmouth, $37,753,696. Debt service, $607,161. For Dennis-Yarmouth, $652,803. Total assessment, total $18,332,491 for Dennis, $38,406,499 for Yarmouth.
Motion has been made. Is there a second? Phil seconded. Is there further discussion on this?
Jen, I just would like to, the only amendment might be, he read the superintendent recommendation, but I think it should read the school committee recommends.
That the school committee approve the superintendent's recommendation, yeah. All right, further discussion? All right, I'm going to do a roll call vote on this, please. Phil Morris,
Yes.
Jim Dykeman,
Yes.
Jennifer Rose,
Yes.
Joe Tierney,
No.
Zane Fitzgerald,
Yes.
Joe Glynn.
No.
All right, motion passes.
Is it 5-2?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
All right, let me get back to the agenda here. Carol, is there anything else on your report tonight?
That is all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. That's all. Yeah, right. School committee business, we already handled number 1. Number 2 is the consent agenda. And we are grateful for a donation of $500 from the Dennis-Yarmouth Women's Club for 2 camperships, and a donation of tambourines to the Station Ave Elementary School from Louise Hopkins and Seamus Hopkins of South Yarmouth. And we also have the minutes of the February 22nd meeting. Does anyone move the consent agenda?
Move the consent agenda as printed.
Moved and seconded by Jim. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 I vote aye. Thank you very much. Calendar is enclosed. Bills, requisitions. Everyone make sure when you get that email from Eileen asking to stop by the office and sign. Everybody gets in as best you can and sign off. We will have a public comment period for the 20 minutes. If you would like to speak, please raise your hand and you will be recognized. I will unmute you. Please state your name and you will have 3 minutes to speak. This is your opportunity to address items on the agenda. This is not a question and answer session, and we will try to get questions answered after the meeting as best we can. Sometimes we are able to answer some questions quickly here, but generally we're going to direct you to the right person. And let me take a look at the list. Tracy Post.
Good evening. Thank you very much. So obviously we've been through this every year, and I appreciate your work on this. I have a lot of questions. I'll save it for the presentation that we get from the school about the details. Just the one question generally is, I just want to make sure I understand that this is the same exact budget that you guys reviewed on February 22nd, because I'm looking at your PowerPoint presentation and it says adjustments made, and that was the same number, 66,923. It's page 5 of your presentation. In any event, while you're talking about that, I think Joe Glynn talked about on our agenda tomorrow night, we will have a discussion about town meeting. I think town meeting potentially could be moved, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we haven't had any discussion about moving the ballot, which leads us to an issue. If you were to lower your budget in the future, our ballots will probably be printed. So one of the reasons we had made a nice distance between our town meeting and our election day was when adjustments are made at town meeting, then obviously we had time to adjust them on the ballot, but potentially this is the budget that's going to go to the ballot. So any reduction from then you take from here. I'm not sure when you meet next and when the ballots will be printed, but obviously time is of the essence because any reduction may not show on the ballot. So we've had this in the past where reductions happened and ultimately when somebody goes in and pulls a ballot, they have that override of the 1.388 number, regardless of what reality is. And so they don't know. So I think that's something you have to be very careful about with timing. So we'll know more at our meeting tomorrow, but potentially this is the number that could go on the ballot. So I'll save my other questions for Carol. I know at some point she's scheduled to come before us. Carol, is that the same number? I'm sorry.
No, it's not the same number. The original number voted on February 8th was 67,498,997.
All right. Okay, so the 66 is where you're at now, 66, 3.37%.
Yep.
Okay, all right, well, I can't speak for my board. I know, as Joe Tierney mentioned, we set the 2.5% for everybody. It's, we're in the same situation you're in as far as, we have some stabilization and free cash, but that doesn't really solve the problem long-term. And that would be a very short-sighted thing for us to fund a budget because it leaves a bigger gap next year. So we have not spoke about anything over the 2.5%. My guess would be that it would go for an override. Thank you.
Thanks, Tracy.
I don't know if anybody had any questions for me that I can bring back to our board tomorrow, but I'd be happy to do so.
Anyone want to relay anything to Tracy at this point? Okay. Thanks, Tracy. Vita Morris.
Hello, this is Vita Morris. We have a total budget that supposedly has been reduced from the original number to just under 67 million. And it's being presented as an increase of 3.47% total. It's very interesting that you don't show what of that, what the percentage it means for Yarmouth, which I believe is about 6%, as against something like 0.67% for Dennis. I don't know why we are back again to where we were for a number of years. So suddenly, after 1 year, suddenly we're back at the same old place. I just don't understand that. I thought that the 5-year rolling average would tend to mitigate that kind of a situation, and apparently it hasn't at all. And not only do we have this big increase in the budget, but after having a 200 student loss here, it's just amazing. Now, the other thing that I have a suggestion for you for trimming. I believe Ken said that he had budgeted 5% for the health insurance increase in the budget, and then he took notice, I guess, of that it was coming in at 2.8%. However, there is also a premium holiday, so that I'm being told that the actual insurance premiums will go down compared to last year. So there should be absolutely no increase in the budget at all for health insurance whatsoever. You can check that out with the you know, the town, and I think that therefore the incoming town administrator in Yarmouth was correct when he stated in his interview that there would be no increase in the health insurance premiums. So that's one place. What's this disaster with the transportation, which I saw in well, I mean, I think you're using a $4 million something as the cost of it. The reimbursement is $1 million or something like that. Isn't that, well, weren't the regional districts supposed to get pretty much 100% reimbursement? What's going on there?
That's the law. We never get it. I mean, it was supposed to be.
Is it literally a law?
I don't know if it's the law. I mean, it was told at one point that we would, but every year we rely on the state for their whatever the percentage is. And this
well,
is
I was questioning someone. I'm sorry for interrupting, but I was questioning someone on that, and they said if it really is a law, then we can sue the state because it's. But if it's only some kind of you know, somebody put it out there as a possibility, of course, then that's something else.
Right.
But that's a total disaster. I mean, we have we're spending $3 million of our own money on transportation.
Yes, if that's what that's what the numbers
well, I
are.
don't. Is that what's impacting the Yarmouth part of it of the budget, the assessment?
So you're at 4 minutes, and you know I feel like the presentation was pretty clear as to what went into the 3.7% increase. And if you want to go line by line, you know, during the week with Carol,
I have a question
I'm sure
about the subcommittee meeting. Excuse me, I have a question about the subcommittee meeting. Is can we get in on Zoom into that meeting or not?
Yes, it's a public meeting. Yes, it's a public meeting.
There will
It'll be
a
posted.
link. There will be a link to it on the agenda. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
May I answer the question about the numbers? Because the enrollment is really what's driving this. If we had not had the 5-year rolling average, Yarmouth would be at 69.2994% of the budget. With the rolling average, they're only at 67.0832%.
Yeah, I mean, we covered this. I mean, the presentation, it's clear how the numbers are calculated. So, I mean, if Vita has questions, I'm sure you're willing to work with her on that.
Absolutely.
Joe Tierney.
Yes, thank you, Jenny. Just real quick, the transportation thing, I believe they're supposed to reimburse us 100%, but it's all based on appropriation. It's subject to appropriation. Right. That's the big word. You know, if they only appropriate $100, we're not going to get $100. We're only going to get a portion of that. So it's whatever the state appropriates that year. That's where we get the money from. So.
Joe Glenn.
Yeah, that's correct. It is appropriation. It is a law, but that's where you hear the buzzword unfunded mandates. Right. They say they try to incentivize regional transportation, but then they don't give you the money. So that's why I always say that we should have our state representatives and our delegation in before the board so they can hear these type of questions for us, and they can send that message back. I always wondered why that doesn't happen. I'm sure they don't mind coming before the board, but it gets them involved and it gets them to hear our concerns specifically. But and also you're right, Jenny, about the health insurance. And Ken spoke to those holidays, those premium holidays. I think he calculated that into that 3.37 number. So
yeah, tonight's reduced number takes into account the reduced healthcare costs. I mean, there's an increase. It's just not as high as we initially thought. So, you know, I don't want to turn public comment into a committee rehash of the budget presentation, but so Phil, 1 second. Is there anyone else? Are there any other attendees who would like to address the committee tonight? I just want to see any hands raised. Okay, Phil?
Just a quick comment that one reason the state created transportation reimbursement was to encourage regionalization. Single town school districts pay for the transportation of their single school district within their town, and it's the money, Chapter 70, goes to the single town instead of to a school district. We get reimbursement. If we were a single town of Yarmouth and a single district for Dennis, our transportation costs would be higher. The real promise is the promise of the future will get 100% or we'll get 70%, but it's totally up to appropriation. And we have complained just about every year to our reps and senators that, hey, we would be in much better shape. We wouldn't have to do overrides if we got the more of the full reimbursement. End of speech.
Thank you, Phil. Unless there is anyone else who'd like to address the committee, that is all we have for this evening.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Made and seconded. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.